Hello, I'm Dr. Zandra Bell McCroy. I'm your virtual PLC lead for 6 through 12 band. And let's jump right into webinar number 8, part 1, and let's get started. The nuts and bolts of band. Um, the subtitle for this is Handling Band Director Business is Hard Work. Um, yeah, it's just plain and simple. This is just hard work. So let's just talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of it. This is me in my office. That is where I find myself way more than I ever thought I would as an aspiring band director. I just really didn't think I was signing up for an office job. Um, and I'm not. I don't have an office job until planning period, maybe. And after school and before school, that picture was taken before school when I was trying to handle a lot of band business before the start of the school day. So I took advantage of the time to just work. So this is where most young band directors don't realize how much time they're going to spend in their office. And so the three big chunks that we're going to talk about today are in the three sections. The first section, this part one, will be about the business of band. And that's going to be mostly on the money side, the financial side of things. And then the second part of the webinar series will take care of or talk about managing human capital. And then the third section will discuss managing the actual nuts and bolts. So let's jump right into the business of band. So the three big parts or the three big sections that we're going to talk about in this first part of our webinar series is building and maintaining a budget, fundraising, and grant writing. So let's jump right into building and maintaining a budget. Did you know that financial matters are often the source of the greatest anxiety for both novice and experienced band directors? Money makes everyone nervous. They always tell you in school and in college, don't touch the money and don't touch the kids. Um, and yeah, it's true. Don't mess up money because money can ruin your career. And but on the flip side of that, because we have to be so careful with our money and so um, frugal and fiscally responsible, many band directors end up being quite financially secure because they use their budgeting skills to improve their personal financial health. So it can be a win-win. So building a budget is necessary for everybody. And even if you have been at a school for a long time, you may have to pivot and recalibrate how you build your budget. And so there are certain questions to ask when you are assessing your program's needs. Um, and that's the first part of building a budget. You got to assess what your program needs. What do we have? What do we need? How much will it cost? How much can students afford to pay? How much money do we get from the county or the school? And where are the holes? Like, where are the gaps? So, the first question, what do we have? You got to assess your inventory. That means you have to have an inventory. We'll talk about that in part three. But this also includes um, equipment like chairs and stands and storage units and all of that. We often just think about instruments, but there are other things that we need in the band room to be successful. And this may be time consuming. You've got to make sure that you have that that inventory ready to go, knowing what you have, and really assessing what is functional, what isn't, what storage needs you have, what electronic needs you have, what chair needs, stands needs, all of those types of things. And it gets students to help you so that you can get through all of that so that you can get to the business of band. Then you ask, what do we need? Get an accurate roster of your students, assess who needs an instrument, mallets, sticks, etc., And then assess the student's ability to supply their own materials, their own pencils, their own highlighters, their own binders, all of that. Everyone's community is different. I teach in a Title I school, so some of my students' needs are a little more involved than some other schools, but you just roll with it. You figure it out. Question number three, how much will it cost? Now, this is where things can get really, really time consuming. It's a great summertime, spring break, winter break type of activity, and that's creating a bid list and getting it completed. So many vendors actually have educator pricing, and if you have a really good relationship with your road rep, giving them a listing of everything you need, they can oftentimes just complete that bid list for you super quick because they have access to all of that information. Um, for example, with Woodwind Brasswind, all you have to do is send your shopping cart to them, and they can create educator pricing bid list for you. So it's really great. Then prioritize your list. Know what your immediate needs are, your coming needs, and what are your coming needs based on growth. So, first, what do we have to have right now, this second, today, to be successful? And then, what are we going to need based on growth within the next year? And then don't forget supplies and subscriptions. So, those things can be funded through your county allotment, school allotment, booster allotments, all of those things. Those things can be purchased through all of those funds as well. So don't forget subscriptions if you choose to use those. How much can students afford to pay? This is important. You have to know your community. So assess the community and how much students have traditionally paid to participate in the different areas of the program, and making sure you're able to stay close to um, not having like a huge exponential jump in band fees going from say $25 a year to $100 a year is really drastic, especially for families with multiple children. So if you go from 25, maybe go to 35 and just ease your way up to 50, stay at 50 for a little while, ease your way up to 75, stay at 75 for a little while, ease your way up to 100. However you need to do it, but the increases in student fees should be minimal. Yeah. And try to make fees all inclusive. So one fee covers everything. I remember talking to Darren Johnson. He was the band director. He's happily retired now. He was the band director at Peach County High School for many, many years. And he talked about having basically a little, you know, care package that kids get with their band fees, and he uses every penny of their band fees to give them this care package. It'll, a book and a binder and reeds and valve oil and all the things that they will need. There you go. It's all your shirt, your this, your that, all of the things that you will need for the whole year. There you go. And so I love that because it takes the feeling of being nickeled and dimed out of the equation. So we always build in our polo shirt fee into our band fees. We build in our marching band shirt fee into our band fees so that everything that you'll need, you'll get it, right? So next, how much money do we get from the county system and or school? If you're unsure, ask questions. I'm a huge question asker. I actually just left my principal's office asking a lot of questions. And it's really important. If you don't know the answer, if you don't know if you get money, ask questions. And if you can't get to your principal, ask one of your colleagues in the same area. If they're in the same district, ask one of your colleagues across town at another school that has your same position. Ask questions. That's the only way you're going to find out. And figure out where these funds can go. So there may be limitations on what you can purchase with certain funds, right? So if funds are earmarked for literacy resources, um, you may only be able to use those funds for things that promote literacy. And you may not be able to, say, buy a bass drum with literacy funds. So just know where those funds can go, know what's available, know what you need, and then you can just play match. And then finally, if you think that your program needs more, ask for it. The worst thing they can say is no. And, or really, the way I think about it, every no really means not yet. So I'm just going to keep asking. I'm going to create the best product I can with what I have. And then I'm going to keep asking until I get what I want. So always frame it from the perspective of this is what the kids need to be successful. We would not um, understaff our school if we could help it. We wouldn't not provide the supplies that our students need for Core 4. So frame it that way. This is about student need and success. So making sure that it's not personal, it's not money for you, it's money for the students in the program. It's hard to say no to that. Okay, now where are the holes? You have to find the holes. Now there are going to be many holes. You've done a whole bunch, but there's still going to be a lot of holes there. And now that you've figured out what you need, how much it costs, and how much will be covered by the band fees, the school system, the school, we can figure out how to close those holes. And that's creating a fundraising plan. Okay, creating a fundraising plan. All right. Now I've gone and looked up a couple of um, budget templates here for you. And these are templates that we are going to use for our budget this year. There's a small business one and there's a personal one. And it's just about which one you like best and which one um, makes sense to you. And so just, feel free to use them. Feel free not to. They're free. You can find plenty online. So just knock yourself out looking for a good budget template. I love this quote: An investment in knowledge pays the best interest." So that goes back to that, Benjamin Franklin, not me. And so that goes back to that idea of really focusing on um, talking about the student needs, right? We're investing in knowledge, right? We're investing in student success. We're investing in the kids and their learning, and that's going to pay great interest. All right, so let's talk about fundraising. It has to be done. The reason I have the face palm there is I just really don't like fundraising. It's logistically a nightmare, and or can be, and it can be just really time consuming and taxing because you're dealing with money and children, and those two things are just really difficult to deal with when they're like butting up against each other. Children dealing with money, yeah. All right, so ask yourself these questions before you choose a fundraiser. What will work in our community? If a $50 can of popcorn does not fly in your community, don't do that fundraiser. Don't waste your time. If people aren't going to buy it, don't waste your time. Ask around, figure out what, will work in your community. Yeah. Um, and then, also ask other people in the school, like your football coaches, your basketball coaches, your cheerleading coaches, all of those people that have to fundraise the way we, do as band directors. Ask them what they use and what works in the community, especially if they've been there longer than you. It's a really great place to start. Then, what types of fundraisers work for our students? Like, what types of fundraisers should we use with our students? Are our students that will get out into the community and sell, or are they more short-term fundraisers, long-term fundraisers? Are they going to be more, let's do it all online, let's send out a link, what will work for your community, for your students? Like, what will they work for on? What type of fundraiser will they commit to? And then finally, how many fundraisers will we need for the school year? Figure that out. Know where the holes are, know how much you need to make, and then go ahead and plan out as many fundraisers as you think you need. You can always cancel one, you can always add one, but just kind of know, give yourself an idea of how many fundraisers you want to do for the school year. Before choosing a fundraiser, please ask questions. Please ask questions. That is so important. Know the rules, know what you can and cannot do. So, about fundraisers and asking questions, some school systems do not allow crowdfunding fundraisers. You can't do crowdfunding fundraisers. So, um, you can't say, "Can you all contribute so we can buy a new set of timpani?" Mm-mm. Some school systems do not allow that. Try not to schedule your fundraisers on top of other organizations' fundraisers at your school. So if JROTC, if they're selling, say, bulk laundry detergent and bulk um, dishwashing liquid, I only use that because that's an actual fundraiser that our JROTC does. It's a great fundraiser. Um, don't sell on top of them. Even if you're not selling the same thing, just that give them that professional courtesy and ask the same of others. So when you plan your fundraisers and you if you don't have a fundraiser calendar, ask to put it on the master calendar so other people can know this is where our fundraisers are and let's try not to overlap. And then finally, don't forget to get all fundraisers approved by the school and the district administration. That can be the biggest headache. You've got this whole fundraiser plan, you're ready to go, and your bookkeeper tells you you can't have that fundraiser. You didn't get approval. Tips on fundraising. Talk with the community. See what they want. See what they'll buy. Talk with the students. What will they sell? What do they think people want to buy? What would they buy if they were approached with a fundraiser? Talk with other coaches and sponsors. Ask them what they're doing. Think outside the box. Every fundraiser doesn't have to be the same. You don't always have to sell something. A good rehearsal time goes a long way. Vary your fundraisers, so don't always sell stuff. That can get kind of cumbersome, and people can get tired of you. And then analyze your data after each fundraiser. How do we do? Do we need to do this fundraiser again? Was this effective? Blah blah blah. And finally, grant writing. It's a necessary evil. We all have to do it. It is a way to close the holes, to close the gaps in our budget. What is a grant proposal? A grant proposal requests funding to support activities that provide a solution to a problem. It explains how a project or program will address the problem and what gaps in service it will fill. So, grants are to close gaps. That's really what they're there for. Grant writing can be tricky. Very, 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 very tricky. Um, Writing a grant proposal requires familiarity with all the required components of a successful proposal. We will go over that, as well as knowledge of the intended audience and awareness of details as minor as grammar and spelling. And I've got this information from an executive director of a nonprofit that I am friends with, and she gave me this information. It was very helpful about grant writing and things that people don't know. So let's talk about the required components of a successful grant proposal. Problem and need statement. Every grant proposal is going to have the problem and need statement, and it defines a problem and provides evidence that it needs a solution. So it defines the hole, right? It tells them this is the hole, this is the gap, and this is what we need to fill. This is why this needs a solution, and it's always going to need to link back to is about the kids. Goals and objectives. Measurable objectives and indicators of the success of the proposed solution or program are so important. Really think through this. Um, First off, what are your goals? Like, what do you want to accomplish by closing this gap? What is going to be better in your program um, because of closing this gap? And what objectives do you have? And how are you going to measure those um, when you meet those goals? How are you going to measure that? And then finally, project design. And it explains the elements of the program and how it will be implemented. This is where the detail oriented part of grant writing really comes in. You really need to think through how your project design is going to go. How are you going to implement this project? How are you going to hold everybody accountable? And all of that. So keep going. Here's more. A staffing plan. It describes the staff or volunteers and their expertise and skills or capacity to carry out the program. So if you're um, bringing in staff or volunteers to help execute this program that you're getting grant funds for, um, you need to talk about who these people are and why they're qualified to do this, and how much responsibility will they have in this whole project. Evaluation plan. It quantifies the impact or results of the program. So a way to get measurable results, and how are you going to quantify all of that, the data that you get back. And finally, a budget proposal shows how the money will be spent and that staff can allocate funds properly. So you want to make sure that every penny is allocated to a certain area. So you want to make sure that you are very conscious about how you use this money. All right. So that was a lot, and that was a quick crash course in just that one component about grant writing. But there are free grant writing classes out there. These are a couple that I found. One is learngrantwriting.com is the website, and nonprofitready.org is the other, and they both offer free grant writing classes. So that was a lot. I know it was a lot, but this is the nuts and bolts webinar, so we have a lot to unpack. We do a lot of things. So please join me. Come on back and join me for part 2. And part 2 is managing human capital. And I hope to see you soon. Gracias.